ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. So people remember where we stopped last time? 13th verse, right? Chapter 4. Okay. Any doubts on that whole system? The Varnashrama Dharma. Remember, it was not the caste system. There were two dharmas. One was Varna, another was Ashrama. Varna did not mean caste. Varna meant color. Color was not black and white. Color was red, white and black. Okay. So white was standing for Sattva, red for Rajas, black for Tamas. So as we saw last time, various permutations and combination of these three colors, or Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, these three gunas created the mental caste, the mental makeup. We are revising the 13th sloka from chapter 4. So it was guna karma vibhagaha. Karma divisions always existed in society. Every society, however classless, for example, the communists tried to make a classless society. Okay. How much classless can you really make it? There will always be a ruling class. There will always be the army. In communist countries, you need army more. You will always have a police force. You will always have a judiciary, though their function will be subservient to the Communist Party. You will always have the working class. You will always have the business class within whatever entrepreneurship the communist system allows. So you cannot really create a classless society. So the four varnas, broad categories, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, existed in all societies based on karma. That's not a problem. No karma is superior or inferior to anyone else. The ward boy who disinfects the operation theatre is as important as the doctor who operates. Why? Because if he does not sterilize the room properly, the operation will be successful, but the patient will pick up infections and die. Because you are cutting open the abdominal cavity, the thoracic cavity, and infection will go directly inside. So the ward boy's job is not a menial job. In ancient India, we did not think of any of these jobs as menial. The term menial didn't exist. All very important. That's why later on he'll say, Swakarmanam tamabhyakcha, living a life according to your karma. Siddhir bhavati manava. The person achieves sattva guna pradhanam. If at all you can say they made a mistake, it was to name both the guna division as well as karma division with the same name. If at all. They didn't think it will get so corrupted. And karma wise, following your father's profession is common in many places. Okay. Which doctor doesn't want his child to pick up medicine? In fact, it becomes a great disappointment to a doctor, especially a doctor who has a nursing home, if the child doesn't pick up medicine. अरे मेरा नर्सिंग होम के क्या हो जाएगा? So some amount of it is not nepotism. Nepotism is when you encourage someone's child and put down somebody else. You put down talent while encouraging a mediocre child of the same because the father is in the same profession. That is nepotism. But the child joining the father's or the mother's business, where is that nepotism? That's quite natural. Why? The child has grown up, seeing the parents function. Even today, most of our army comes from traditional martial families, whose uncle, father, mother, somebody or the other was in the armed forces. The child, and that is the strength in India. Otherwise, if the Indian army was relying on the city dwellers and our millennials for their soldiers, they wouldn't have any. Even that girl, the first woman to fly in Kargil, Gunjan. I also have a student Gunjan here, but she is into a great business. Okay, that girl Gunjan, okay, she also comes from a martial family. So first woman pilot to be posted in Kargil. That's what that movie is about. Yeah. But she came from martial traditions. So that cannot be talked. Can you talk about that as nepotism? Nepotism, the girl is willing to risk her life. She is putting her life on the line for her country. How is that nepotism? Okay, you want to risk your life? Please join. Please join. Yeah, in some fields it becomes more, like in the films and Bollywood, etc. That's a different thing that happens. I don't want to go about talking about that. I have my own views on that, but may not be the proper this. Therefore, some amount of karma becoming hereditary happened, which had its advantages, which had its disadvantages. Disadvantage was that new talent did not very often come in. Advantage was that a talented boy or a girl joining the father's profession, let us take the father is an artist, he works on stone, building temples, etc., carvings, etc. His child, by the time the child is 5-year-old, it has learned to handle the hammer and chisel well. You know how difficult it is to handle a hammer and chisel? My left hand constantly remembers it, because I remember how I learnt it to chip metal when I was 18 or so. And I remember how many times I banged my hand with the hammer. It took me a few months, a whole month, 8 hours a day to master it. Whereas this child at 5 would have been a master. Would have mastered handling a hammer and chisel. Then imagine, by 10, 12, the child is an expert workman. When the child is 18, he is an artist. By the time he is 35, he can create great works of art like how you see in our South Indian temples. Those carvings of solid granite. Chipping granite is like chipping metal. It's a hard stone, very hard stone. Your chisel will fly back, will jump back at you when you chip it. I have tried this. So that's how the great artists built those temples. Huge temples, and what art. On one side, a dancing Ganpati, 6 feet, and the fingernails done so well that you can see the nails separating from the flesh. In granite, Michelangelo did the same thing in marble, and you praise him. Marble is a soft stone, it's easy to work on it. It will blend under your hands. Not granite. To create that in granite costs a lot more skill and effort. And on the opposite panel, you will see the same identical statue with all the detailing, only 2 inches. what works of art they created. And that was possible only because this kid took it up from birth. Otherwise, where do you create? And these were not some renowned artists. These were everyday work people who did it. Everyday workers. Like your construction workers they were. But they created such works of art. Yeah. They were like your construction workers. But they created such works of art. Yeah. Beautiful stuff. So that was the advantage in the child joining the father's profession. So similarly, martial traditions. How did Parashurama discover that Karna was a warrior, not a Brahmana? You all remember the story? Anyone remembers the story here? How come Karna was discovered? Karna went to study with Parashurama. Yeah. Saying he was a Brahmana. Sorry, my Zoom is giving a bit trouble. Yeah. It's yeah. Yeah. Who remembers the story? Big. Yeah. Lap tour. Yeah. 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 Yeah, so what is the lesson here? Can you all hear me? Hello? Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me or you can't hear me? Can you all hear me? Yeah, this was giving some trouble, so I just checked that. Okay, yeah, okay. So, what was the lesson that is there from that story, Parashurama and Karna? Yeah, yeah. But in our context here, look at it. Only someone. See, Karna did not pitch a muscle. The wood borer is boring into his thigh muscles. Okay, big muscles, painful. If anyone wants to experience it, take a small injection on your thigh muscle, outside of the thigh, the quadricep muscles. Take an injection there, you will understand what it is, how painful it can be. Or take a small punch from me on that. It will be better. Now here is the insect boring in, boring in, boring in. And Karna does not move a muscle, does not twitch. Until the flowing blood from the leg touches Parashurama's shoulder. And because of the wetness, he gets up. He says only someone who has been into this whole tradition from childhood can bear this pain without twitching a muscle. There says, you are not a Brahmana, you are a Kshatriya by profession. Minimum, if not by birth. And then Karna has to admit it. What I am trying to say is, look at a Kshatriya kid. He is already playing with bows and arrows and swords when other children are playing with cricket bats. This guy is playing with a sword. He has learned to handle a sword. By the time others handle cricket bats, this character is handling a sword. And can get pretty good at it. And by the time he goes to a Gurukula to learn the art, basics he already knows. Toughness he has already developed. Ability to stand pain is already there. You can't be a warrior and say, I don't want pain. Okay, forget it. Yeah. Rene Descartes said, the philosopher said, I think, therefore I am. You know what a martial art says? A martial artist says, I ache, therefore I am. Sore muscles, pain, injuries are common warrior's lot. This is a warrior's lot. From childhood picked up. So that on the battlefield, even if you have been shot, you are still a functional soldier. Advantage. So these type of advantage was there. Recognizing this advantage, many children followed their parents' profession. Very naturally followed their parents' profession, and that was the advantage. The advantage was that they could automatically become great skilled in that. Can somebody tell Shravani to try and join in, and I'll admit her immediately? So it became very natural. Now they saw this advantage. But when the whole Varnashrama system degenerated, it degenerated under predominantly foreign rule. Why? Because our invaders always wanted the local people in the administration to help implement laws, etc. Therefore, they gave the privileges to the educated people. Brahmanas were the most educated. So, they became literally admin clerks for the Mughals and the British. And because of that, they were privileged. Kshatriyas not so much, because Kshatriyas were fighting against the Mughals and the British. If you look at our traditional history that's available, not what we have been fed in schools, but the local literature that's available, continuously, we are resisting foreign rule. Continuously. All the time. Some king or the other, some chieftain or the other, some local hero, continuously resisting it. So they were not the privileged class. The Brahmanas became privileged class. And then they wanted to make it hereditary, because now you became what? Someone who's selling your skills for money. So privileged class. Deterioration started at the top. So like now, if you go to very Brahminical families, they will make only two divisions: Brahmin, non-Brahmin, and Brahmins are superior. Stupid, idiotic. Stupid and idiotic. They have no Brahmanatvam in them. There is no Brahmanatvam in them. No learning, no scholarliness. All they learn and know is to do some Sandhya Vandanam and which direction to face when you are doing Namaskara. That's all they know, nothing more. But they think they are superior. And whenever the degeneration happened, anti-Brahminical movement came up, like Dravida Kazhagam in Tamil Nadu, communism in Kerala and Bengal. You look at the pattern. It is because of degeneration. This is not what the system was meant for. This is not the system. The system was geared for moksha, not for holding somebody superior or inferior. It was not meant to make superior or inferior. It is meant for moksha. In moksha, we are not talking about superior, inferior. We are not even talking about equality. We are talking about oneness, that you and I are one and the same. That's what we are talking about in moksha. There cannot be anything more inclusive than that. But the degeneration set in. Degeneration set in, and the British encouraged it. Part of their divide and rule policy, they divided the community up, and we idiots fell for it. Because we gave up our learning. We just held on to our family birth. In fact, in Sanskrit, to call somebody a Pandita Putra is an insult. He's saying, that means parent were Panditas, this child is an idiot. That's what it means. Yeah. It's not a compliment. Not a compliment. Yeah. So that was a degeneration. So this was a Varna Dharma. So you follow your profession, you live a life of Karma Yoga and become Sattva Guna Pradanaha in your thinking. Become more sattvic, noble, committed to values, etc. Then moksha will be easier. That's why you had someone like Arjuna, warrior by profession, one of the finest warriors available in the world at that time. If not the best, one of the best. And Sattva Guna Pradana, why? He asked for moksha right on the battlefield. Brahmana by Guna, Kshatriya by Karma. Don't think because you are Brahmana by Guna, you cannot make a great warrior. It's a mistaken notion that a Sattvic man cannot become a warrior. That's wrong. That's wrong thinking. They will become warrior philosophers, warrior intellectuals. They will make great generals and leaders, strategists. This is what they will become. Yeah. So just because you became being Sattvic is not being a pacifist. Oh my God, no, turn the other cheek. Hey, idiot. What turn the other cheek? That's not what Krishna is talking about here. It doesn't make you mild, but it gets your wildness under control. You don't become wild either. You follow dharma. You do what is expected of you. You have a certain centeredness and calmness about yourself. Yeah. That's what it takes. Therefore, following your own karmas, you become Sattva Guna Pradana, then moksha is easy. This was one division that the society had. Prasanga Vashat, because it's contextual, I am explaining another difference also, which goes together. It is always called as Varna and Ashrama Dharmas. Ashramas were simple to understand. The first portion of your life, you were a student. Your job was to be a student and nothing else. Gaining knowledge and skills was your responsibility. Your responsibility was not to maintain the family. In fact, after the child became 6, between 6 and 10, you do the Yajnopavita ceremony, initiation into Gayatri, because that is initiation into Vedic studies, and then you would pack him off to a Gurukula. Child will come home only during the holidays, Chaturmasyam, etc. Whatever holiday system they had that time, the child would come home. But otherwise, the child is in a Gurukula. Hostel life. Therefore, there is no rebellion against parents, etc. So, the love and nurturance, unconditional love and nurturance the child got from the parents until the age of 6, when the unconscious of the child is being formed. There's a whole psychological theory behind it, the theory of the unconscious. What you pick up in childhood. If you are not loved enough in childhood, you will never be able to feel a sense of security and love right through your adult life. Very difficult. You require to do a lot of psychological work. Take care of the inner child, etc. So a lot of these things will be there. So the first 6 years was important, and the parents' duty was just to give unconditional love. Then once you went to Gurukula, all the discipline, structuring, etc. came in. A lot of discipline and structuring came in. The child was expected to behave with a responsibility almost beyond its years. Yeah, that's how growth happens. Yeah. And the education was in the hands of the rishis. The rishis and the rishi patni were the surrogate parents for the children. Now, there could have been a lot of rishis and rishi patnis depending upon how big the school was. 12 years of education. There was a certain amount of religious education also. The understanding of Ishvara, etc. was there. Not necessarily moksha, no. That was given only if someone asked for it. Because not yet seen enough of life. But Ishvara is good to bring in Ishvaras into a child's life. The other day, I had met up with some people and the mother was arguing, but I am putting my values into the child. The child should have its own values. Never heard something more idiotic. Okay. Why? The values you are talking about, honesty, integrity, compassion, love, etc. are universal. They are not private property of something. It is not like you like dahi chawal, I like paratha. They are not values like that I am putting my values. You can't say you like honesty, I like cheating. That's stupid. So, universal values, dharma, had to be taught. They are recognized by the child, which I will deal with elaborately when we come to the topic in the 13th chapter. Instinctively recognized, but has to be refined with education. So, dharma, teaching the child how to think, analysis, analytical thinking, creative thinking, all this was taught. And if the school was big enough, the professional skills that the child will pick up later, that is also taught. If the school was big, they would have more than one teachers and multiple disciplines going simultaneously. Simultaneously things would go on. And the parents and the children did not have to pay anything. If they wanted to, that is their choice, but there was no charges. Then how did the Gurukula maintain itself? The Gurukula maintained itself by its past students. Past students contributed to the Gurukula out of gratitude for what they have received. Like every year, for 20-25 years, I used to conduct my gurus public talks in Bombay, and whatever collection we got from that, surplus, straight we'd go to Rishikesh and Coimbatore, the institution set up by my guru. Why? I graduated from him, under him. So, I will help him maintain the Gurukula. And in those days, what was the examination system? That is also interesting. Once you finish the education, the Guru thinks you are up to the mark. you would be sent to the local king's court. There, the Pandits would examine the child. Child, young man now. Because 6 plus 12, 18 minimum. So 18, 20 years he would be. So, the Pandits will examine him, and if they are satisfied that this guy is a young scholar, good, the king would give him his first gift of money. He'd give him a bag of gold, which he was supposed to go and give it back to his guru. But state funded. Okay? So therefore Gurukulas were state funded, but not directly. Performance based. If the students passing out were good, the Gurukula will prosper. If the students passing out were not up to the mark, then Gurukula would close down. Performance oriented. Not like today, any college can thrive and function. No. It is not a business. That's why the rishis handled it. Because education was not a business. Education should not be a business. And there were specialized schools also. Like Drona school was, Gurukulam was purely specialized, only for martial training. Therefore, on the battlefield of Mahabharata, every prince there, every prince and Mahayodha there had some time or the other learned from Drona. So when Drona surveyed the field, like Arjuna, Drona also surveyed the field. And he found, acha, my students are there on both sides. Today is the ultimate test for them. He was looking at it that way. Today is the ultimate test for them. So this was the first stage in life, brahmacharya. You are supposed to be single, not get into love affairs. Why? Don't distract yourself from your education, Baba. Anyway, education over by 18. It's a Western influence. Why now 14 you are having girlfriends and boyfriends. Not very healthy. It happens. Society changes, but they're not very healthy. Okay. How do you know? Who do you think they go and discuss all the problems with? Their mamas and papas or someone like me? Okay. Anyway, so after that, the first ashrama is over with your graduation. Then you came home. Young man or woman, educated, qualified, smart, has disciplined life he has lived. Therefore, get married. Natural. Unless you wanted to go and become a sannyasi, that was allowed. Okay. But better to have some experiences in life. Therefore, get married. Second ashrama, the Grahastha ashrama. The Grahastha ashrama was considered in some ways the base ashrama because the Grahastha supported not only the brahmachari but also the sannyasi. The Grahastha ashrama went in earning a living, predominant. Dharma was creation of wealth, not just money. Creation of wealth is different from making money. Think about that, okay? And having a child or two. Why? You need to replace yourself when you are ready to quit. No? If the child ratio of in a country follows below 2, the chances of their culture surviving are poor. Of course, we don't have to worry about it yet because we have a lot of overpopulation. We have to worry more about getting them into understanding what Hinduism is about. So, a couple of Grahastha ashrama. Then, once your children are grown up, they are handling the issues, they are capable of handling, you become a Vani, Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha was, I would look at it in today's world as moving from the executive to the advisory. You are only a mentor now. You are not doing things. And you are advisor only if they ask you for advice, not otherwise. You don't every day call your son and say, hey, beta, do like this, do like this. No, 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 no. Let him do. If he wants some advice, he'll come to you. In olden days, they actually moved to the forest, some forest dwelling and the outskirts of the city, or into some ashrama or something like that they moved into. This ashrama is different from a Gurukula. This ashrama was meant only for moksha. Gurukula had other students studying, brahmachari studying. Here it was meant only for moksha. They were smaller ashrams. There is a guru and a few disciples. And the last stage, after a few years of grahastha, of vanaprastha, when you have sort of let go of things and you are psychologically ready, you took sannyasa. Sannyasa was the last ashrama, fully committed to moksha, nothing else. Best retirement plan in the world. You have given up everything, you have nothing. You live on alms. What people give you, you live on. Best retirement plan. Therefore, ashrama dharma with small modifications one can still follow. Like I have a lot of students who have been with me for some years, who are not literally sannyasis in the world, in the sense that they are staying at home and things like that, but their whole life is geared towards moksha. Great life. You're staying at home, that's okay. Some modifications as culture changes, as situation change. Whole life is geared towards moksha. Great. Therefore, this was varnashrama dharma. And this was available for anyone and everyone. Yeah. It was available for everyone. Varnashrama dharma was available. Okay. This was the ancient system. Okay. And he says the whole thing has been set forth through me, Ishvara. Through the Veda it has come in. Okay. It degenerated like everything else can degenerate. Anything can degenerate. If the people degenerate, systems degenerate. Now that is a tragedy that happened. Degeneration was a tragedy. Okay. That happened. Kali Prabhava. Okay. Kali Yuga. But at least all of us who understand it can help people around us understand what it is about. Okay. Any questions on this or everything clear? Because this is a very confusing stage in our history. If there are any questions, shoot now. All clear? Yes or no? Yeah? Huh? Yeah. Traditionally speaking, if you are going by the traditional calculations, Kali Yuga we are in Kali Yuga right now. Though I have heard some people saying, okay, that Kali Yuga is over and we are in the reversing trend. But yeah, see, the reversing was not what the traditional thinking was. The traditional thinking was cyclic. If it is cyclic, after Kali Yuga you need Satya Yuga, not reverse. Not reverse Dwapara, Treta, Kali. Satya, not like that. Yeah, it has to be a cyclic movement. If it is a cyclic movement, after Kali Yuga, there has to be some time of Pralaya, water world, and then Satya Yuga has to start. This is the traditional viewpoint. No one knows for sure. We will know only if we see it. Okay, yeah, he must have said that. At the same time, I know one thing for a fact. When I have helped organize, the first talk I helped organize for Puja Swamiji Swami Dayanji was in 1974. I was a young man, not yet joined the ashram. 1974, I was one of the volunteers who helped organize. At Chowpatty, the beach, there used to be 10,000 people coming. And then over the years, what happened? We are happy to get a couple of thousand people. From 74 to 85, when I organized, we could barely fill up Shanmukananda Hall. 3,500 people. Are you getting the idea? So the numbers have gone down. Yeah. So, in spite of so much of outreach, in Swami Dayananji's Parampara alone, Arsha Vidya Parampara alone, there are 350 of us teaching all over the world. But still, when we have a public program, 500 people, great. Can you see that? There is only one among us who can take a physical program and get 500 people for a class. That is Paramarthananda in Chennai. I wouldn't put him as the greatest of our teachers, but I'll definitely put him as the most popular of our teachers. He and Omkarananda. But they are popular because they are in Chennai. If he comes to Bombay, he won't get that crowd. His approach and thing fits in with the Tamilian culture. So he gets that. But he gets that. There is another junior of mine, way junior to me, 30 years junior. He is in Brazil and he speaks in Portuguese. He is a student of my batchmate. Then he came to Puja Swamiji to learn. This guy once he does online classes. He doesn't take live classes so much. Online classes, and twice a year he has camps for them to have something in with a personal contact. That's how his system is. He conducted a meditation class, and guess the number of people that were there meditating with him? Make a guess. Huh? 50,000. Now these seems huge numbers. How many people are infected with coronavirus in India today? All 30 lakhs total infected, 30 lakhs. 7-8 lakhs are still infected, not recovered. About 8 lakhs are yet to recover. 22 lakhs are recovered. Is there any comparison in the numbers? So, I still think we are in Kali Yuga. No? Yeah. Yes, we are still in Kali Yuga. Even we are looking at absolute numbers coming to the classes. When I first started the class in 1985 in Bombay, I got 100 people attending the Gita. Today I get 30-40 people attending, 50 people attending. It has halved itself. Though I think from 85 to now I have grown as a teacher. I am a better teacher now than then. But this is not part of the game. Kali, don't worry about it. We do the best we can. Yeah, we do the best we can. Yeah. Why should I be scared about it? It's not my job. It is Ishvara's job. It is his world, not mine. Even concerned, I will do what I can. It's Ishvara's order that's working, Baba. Yeah, it's Ishvara's order that's working. I will do my best. There are a lot of attacks on the Hindu society. So I started doing things against that also, to defend the society against that also. And I'll happily do that. For me, along with my Vedanta thinking, warrior thinking comes very easily. Very easily to me. Lifetimes I have lived as a warrior, so it comes very easily. So, not a problem for me. Not that I'm going to use violence and things like that. The attack is not violent attacks, it's more intellectual attacks. So you're doing something against that also. So we do what we can. God's will work. Bhagavan's will, Ishvara's will work. We are nimittas in his hand. 12th chapter, Krishna will say that Nimitta matram bhava savya sachin, be an instrument in my hands. How to, etc. we'll see. So that is the whole thing. There is no issue. Yeah, nothing to be scared about, nothing to be worried about, but things to be done. Certain things to be done. Of course, there is love and concern and care. Things to be done. Yeah. Don't worry, there are times when I feel like wringing people's necks also. My compassion and my martial discipline prevents me from doing it. Both. Okay. Yeah. And I can laugh at it. Okay. So it's all right. Then going ahead, if there are no other questions, let's go ahead and see at least one or two more verses. Okay. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha iti mam yo abhijanati karma bhi na sabhadyate. Namam karmani limpanti. I am not touched by action. Name karma phale spruha. Nor am I touched with karma phalam, the result of the karma. Iti mam yo abhijanati janati, those who understand me like that. Karma bihi nasasana badhyate, he also is free from karma. Why? Because to understand Krishna as being totally free from karma and karma phalam both, you have to understand him as pure consciousness. To understand Krishna as pure consciousness is to understand yourself as pure consciousness. You are non-different from Krishna. Therefore, if Krishna is free, so are you. We are not talking about the historical Krishna here. We are not talking about the Krishna who is worshipped as Ishvara here, as Bhagavan here. We are talking about Krishna as he really is, as pure consciousness. That is what we are talking about here. Therefore, you understand, to understand Krishna as pure consciousness, you have to understand yourself as pure consciousness. And both as non-different, both as one and the same. Then you too are free from action. How he will show? You too are free from both doing the karma, therefore free from all guilt, etc. Plus the result of karma, therefore free from all hurt, etc. Both you are free from. Great way to be, na? To be able to do things in the world and not be affected by them. To be able to do things in the world but not affected. You did so much. It all became 6s and 7s. So what? I'll make it 8s and 9s. Not because you don't care. It doesn't affect you. If I don't care, why should someone like me who's not tech savvy, do all this on Zoom and things like that? Really, I'm not tech savvy, okay? But I'm doing it. I'm having a class on Zoom. I have a recording thing to go so that those who miss it can get it. And that shows care. In spite of it, if it doesn't work, God's wish. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Evam nyatva kritam karma purvairapi mumukshubhihi kuru karmaiva tasmatvam purve purvataram kritam. He says, evam nyatva, knowing this, that finally what you have to gain, what you have to do is gain that moksha, gain that knowledge that you are not different from Ishvara, you are nothing but pure consciousness. Okay? Knowing that this is the goal in life, this is what you are working towards, and it takes some time to gain this knowledge. Therefore, kritam karma, they all did karma. Who? Purvairapi mumukshubhi, the mumukshus who walked on this earth before you. Mumukshus are those who are desirous of moksha. Before Arjuna, those who walked. For us, Purvairapi will include Arjuna. For Arjuna, it was Purvairapi when went to what? Janakadeyaha, etc. All those great rishis, all those great kings, etc. Purvai, how they, Mumukshubihi, they kept this moksha, this knowledge as the goal in life. They studied, they gained this knowledge. Along with that, they lived a life of karma. Okay, so that life can be taken care of, their growth can be taken care of. Therefore, he says, Kuru karma eva tasmat tvam. Tvam api kuru karma. You also do the same. Why? It's a tried and tested marga. The process has been tried and tested generation after generation after generation. Tasmat tvam purvai purvotaram kritam. Like how the people of olden times did it. The people who came before you did it. Your father himself went to the forest at the end of his life. Before that, he lived a married life, etc. People before him went like that. Therefore, generations have gone and they have all got it. Every generation had its share of wise men and women. Every generation had that. People of wisdom, people who taught. That's how the parampara, the knowledge was kept alive. The knowledge was kept alive. Every teacher created some teachers. My teacher has created, it's our job to create more. We have started that. Therefore, he says, Purvai Purvataram Kritam, the parampara goes on. Of mumukshus, living a life of karma, gaining their knowledge. Then they can teach, either become a sannyasi and teach, or continue as they are and teach one or two people. Either way, the parampara goes on. Therefore, before you become a teacher, that's secondary. Primary is getting it for yourself. And this is how people have gained it. It's been tried and tested. Your involvement in life will take care of your maturity. And it's only a mature person who can understand Vedanta really speaking. Therefore, if you are involved in life with the proper attitude of Karma Yoga, etc., then your maturity is given. And once that maturity is given, then moksha is not far away. You will gain it. Not far. You will gain that. And once you gain that, your choice. You want to share it with someone? It's not that all teachers have to be sannyasis. We are quite a few of us are grahasthas and teachers also. Some of you know my friend Uday Acharya. He's a grahastha, he's a married man, he's a teacher. Or another student of mine, you heard her during Swamiji's this thing, Falguni. She's a married woman, she's a teacher at the same time. And there are others like Atma Truptananda, Brahma Prajna, me, etc., who are sannyasis. So, both are there. Then, alright, if I have to do karma, then what should you need to know? The topic is introduced, I'll mention it, we will see it in detail later. Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayopi yatra mohita tatte karma pravikshyami yat mokshase yashubhat. Kim karmeti. Kim akarmeti. What is not to be done? What is to be done? What is freedom from karma? Akarma here means freedom from karma. What is karma? What is freedom from karma? Kavyoho api yatra mohitaha. Even Vishnaris are confused about this, he says. Tatte karma pravikshyami. I will talk about that karma, he says. Yat jnatva, knowing which, ashubhat mokshase, you will gain free from samsara. Ashubham here stands for samsara. So that thing, how to know what to do, what not to do, and how to gain freedom from karma, I will talk, he says. When will you talk? Next class. Okay? But next class is not next Saturday. Remember, 2 Saturdays, 2 weekends go in the camp. I'll post the details. I have posted the poster of the camp on this group, on all the groups, but I'll post the details. And as I was saying, 12 September will be the next class. Yeah. After 5th, 5 plus 7, 12. Yeah. So 29th and 5th will be the camp. Okay. And the camp you can attend from your home. You don't have to leave home to come for this camp. Therefore, all of you register and join up. Okay. Register so that we know what adjustments we have to make on Zoom, so that we know you'll be there. Otherwise, if there are too many participants and we have not made arrangements for them, it will be a problem. Okay, some of you will not be able to join up and listen. Okay, so please register as soon as possible so that we can make the arrangements. Okay. Even I can understand that there will be some work etc. coming up, because work from home has become that you are available 24 hours. So sometimes here and there may be some disturbances. That's okay. Quietly leave, tend to that work, come back and attend the class. Okay, that can be done. Okay. So will I see you all at the camp next Saturday? Great. Nice to hear that. Okay. So, yeah. Great. Yeah, Gunjan, I'm looking forward to seeing you there also. You are there in most camps. All the way from Delhi she used to come down. Yeah. She is Soumya from Bangalore on that. Yeah. 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 So good. So let us call it a day. Om Tat Sat.